Okay, I call the order the Rolesville Town Board regular meeting, August 18th, 2020. And if you all would, let's arise and for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And tonight we have Pastor Tyler Williams from the Village Church. If you don't mind leading us tonight, Tyler.
Sure. Let's join together in prayer. Almighty God, we give you thanks for your great love, your love that is universal and yet also profoundly local. We give you thanks for those who are gathered here this night, those commissioners and town officials who are here out of love for this town, for this community, and the desire to serve its people. We pray your blessing upon this meeting, that you would take and mold ideas, the dreams, the challenges that come to light this evening, and shape them to meet your purposes, your desire for a community of justice, a community of flourishing for all people here in Rolesville. We ask all this in Christ's holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for coming out, Tyler. Is anything you want to say about your church before you leave? I mean, are you guys meeting regularly now, or what?
I mean, we meet regularly online, and we're worshiping outside once a month. Right now, we'll see if assuming things don't get worse, our folks are comfortable doing that because it's outside and we're socially distant. So we'll see how it goes. I don't imagine we're going to be back in our physical space right there inside anytime soon, because if we were to social distance in there, we'd only have like room for about 30 people. But yeah, the church is the gathered body and the scattered body. So we're still church, even though we're meeting differently.
Gotcha.
Thank you for asking.
Well, thanks for coming out, Tyler. Appreciate it.
Like that,
What are
gathered and
those, Tyler?
scattered.
What are those sheets outside your space?
It's a drive-in movie.
Gotcha. All right,
Nice.
cool.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on with the agenda. The first item is we'll review the agenda. Is any additions or changes of wishes of the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Here's a second.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, no one opposed. Thank you. And then the consent agenda. There's only one item on the consent agenda tonight, the memorandum of understanding between Town of Rolesville and the Rolesville Chamber of Commerce for 2020-2021. And as always, if any commissioner would like to pull the item off the consent agenda for discussion, we'll certainly do that. What is the wishes of the board on this one?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, got a motion and a second?
Second.
All right, got a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Unanimous, so appreciate that, guys. And I'll say one thing, I do appreciate the commissioners working with the chamber to finalize this thing in the last couple weeks. I think this does show that we are, we're working to be strong partners with the chamber. They do a lot of good things, and we recognize that. So I think what we approved will support them really well the next 12 months, and I appreciate the board working and getting that resolved. I will say that we did understand and learn a little bit more about the foundation and how that works, and I think the main thing we discovered is it's really a separate entity to the chamber. So we will handle that at some point in time. It's probably at the speed of the foundation, but at some point, from what I've seen of the foundation, it looks like they're going to do some good things that I believe you as commissioners can take a look at them and see if we want to partner with them on that. But I think what we learned is it is two different entities, and we need to handle it that way. So appreciate the board and working through that, and I think we got a good MOU, and I think we had some good discussion last time, and I believe just about everything that we talked about that we wanted got in there, and I think that's good. I want to thank the commissioners to do that, because and I appreciate unanimous approval, because that really shows that we support the chamber. So thank you much on that, and appreciate all the work. Okay, moving to the items of business tonight. We have the first one is a public hearing, is Quasi-Judicial, case SPUD 20-01, Carlton Pointe PUD Special Use Permit Amendment, Greenway Trail Replacement of previous SUP conditions. So I know, Kelly, you've been working a lot on this. Is this something you're going to cover, or Danny going to come in and cover this?
Danny and JG, it is a quasi-judicial, so we need to kind of make sure everybody wants to come in, can come in for it. So if you want
Okay.
to
Yeah.
come in.
Yeah.
Hi, Dave Neal. I didn't say hi to you when you came in.
How are you, Madam Commissioner?
Good, how are you?
I'm very well.
Glad
I hope
you're
you
here.
are. And everyone else?
Okay, now that we have our guest, Mr. Attorney, you want to do your part first?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quasi-judicial hearings have characteristics similar to court proceedings. Quasi-judicial decisions made by the board must be based only upon the evidence presented at this hearing and site visits by the board, if any. Witnesses must testify under oath or affirmation. The parties may be represented by legal counsel. The parties have the right to cross-examine witnesses. An opportunity for cross-examination will be provided both at the conclusion of the applicant's case and again at the close of the opponent's case. The parties have a right to object to improper testimony or evidence. There is a right to present rebuttal evidence. All evidence provided by witnesses must be competent and material. Unduly repetitious or irrelevant testimony may be barred. Normally, witnesses may testify only to their personal knowledge of facts. With regard to competent evidence, North Carolina General Statute 160A 393 prohibits a person from giving opinions about scientific, technical, and other specialized subjects unless the person by knowledge, skill, expertise, training, or education is in fact an expert on the subject. A person wanting to give an opinion as an expert must first state his or her qualifications to be an expert. 160A 393 specifically prohibits opinions that, quote, the use of property in a particular way would affect the value of other properties, or opinions that, quote, the increase in vehicular traffic resulting from a proposed development would pose a danger to the public safety, unless the witness is an expert on that subject. And with that, we'll do our normal questions for the board. We'll do this for this first quasi-judicial hearing, and then we'll do it again for the next one, but I will not read the initial remarks. A member shall not participate in this hearing if the member has a fixed opinion prior to the hearing that is not susceptible to change, has engaged in undisclosed ex parte communications, has a close familial, business, or other associational relationship with the applicant or an affected person, or has a financial interest in the outcome of the matter. Is any member of the board predisposed to vote a particular way on this matter, such that his or her opinion is fixed, and the evidence presented during this hearing is not likely to influence his or her decision?
No.
No.
Has any member discussed this matter with proponents, opponents, or others?
No.
I want to reference the email we received earlier. It was earlier today regarding a person asking questions about this Greenway.
Mr. Mayor, as the board members know, and as those watching should understand, a public comment was received by the town clerk relating to this matter. Because that did not come in by someone who was here to testify, that is hearsay and not something that the board members can use in their considerations today. And so if any member has read it, it would need to be disregarded. If anyone wants to raise their hand, if you have read it, and I see 2 commissioners have read it, and I'll ask you, are you able to disregard the comments that you saw and be able to base your decision solely upon the evidence presented at the hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Does any member have a financial interest in the outcome of this matter?
No.
While not a conflict of interest, specialized knowledge of members should be disclosed. Does any member have particular knowledge or expertise regarding the site or the subject matter of this hearing?
No.
Has any member made a site visit?
No.
Is there any objection by a member of the board or by a party to the participation of any member on the basis of a conflict of interest?
No.
Seeing none, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Okay, next item is I asked the clerk to administer oaths to witnesses. And is this everyone in the chamber now, or is it some more next door that need to come in, Danny? Because we want to get them all at one time.
This is
Okay.
all for this.
Good.
Everyone who wants to testify will stand right where you are and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And I'll open the public hearing, and I think, Danny, you're the one that will present staff report?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for a special use permit approval for amendment to the previous special use permit number 0402 Carlton Pointe. That's a master plan PUD. As it relates to a provision identified in that conditions of number 18. The original provision number 18 required the construction of a Greenway trail and a wooden bridge to an unimproved town property offered by Wall Creek Subdivision for a future small pocket town park. And then this is also related to a modification back in 2006 of removing sidewalks on both sides of the road. The petition and got approved, and this was what was result of that.
What date
So-
was the original? Do you know, Danny?
Excuse me,
What's the date of the original?
2004.
2000.
There's been a lot of amendments to this PUD over the years. So this is specifically dealing with the address of this Greenway trail and wooden bridge to the unimproved park. In consideration of the trail and looking at how to put this in and install it, several issues were identified. It was determined by the developer and town staff, including town consulting engineer, that such a Greenway trail improvement would not be feasible due to the existing topographic and environmental conditions with the Neuse River riparian buffers. Stream crossing would not meet environmental permitting approval and would not meet town standards. Without getting into a lot of details, the best way to say it, there was no way we could actually get a fully accessible access to that park through this direction through Carlton Pointe that was approved in that plan. It would be very difficult, next to impossible to accomplish because of the conditions out there. So instead, and let me just first identify what we're talking about, is the original access is this R1 in the upper right-hand corner. And there is an existing Greenway trail that runs the back behind these lots. And it was the proposal to do a bridge crossing here to get to that track, which we know is topographically too narrow, too quick of a relief, very difficult, and trying to get the appropriate approach to that park is just impossible if you get permitting wise.
Danny, can you please identify the streets that you're referencing?
I'm sorry, I apologize, thank you. This is Virginia Waters. The pool is right here. And this red area is where the new Greenway trail will be on the remaining open space track, which is right here.
Gotcha.
And this is the same thing. You can see it's all wooded. This section here is just now under construction. It's the last phase of Carlton Pointe.
Okay, thank you.
And this is Ingenore Drive right here.
The deep ravine is where? I mean, where is that on?
The deep ravine is right through here and it carries up this direction and up towards that way as well.
But it's right here is where the second crossing right there where the pool is.
Does the ravine contain a blue line stream?
Yes, it is a Neuse River buffer,
You're right.
but it is quite topographically challenging there through there too. So that's the location. So this amendment proposes construction of a publicly dedicated and constructed greenway trail to town standards and requirements in a different location and removes the previous need of SUP 0402 provision 18. It's just to strike that out. This will be a substitute. Included is construction drawings showing the existing and future subdivision lots and the proposed construction of the Greenway planned trail from Virginia Water Drive to Inglemore Drive. That's the two ends, and then there is also accesses through the HOA that I'll show on the plans. Sorry, wrong button. So this is the new replacement. This will be a fully paved, 10-foot wide, 20-foot easement, paved greenway trail running all along here, continuing on through this direction, around to here, and we'll cross that. Right now, this is a stream crossing with a sewer line in it. It's not an aerial, it's an actual bed with the pipe in it, and the greenway trail will go on top of that, and then it will continue on down on this side of the stream buffer. That's the stream buffer, and we'll continue on down to this point in Inglemore Drive. From here to down to here and continuing on down to the bypass is part of our greenway plan. So this trail is part of our future greenway that will connect all the way eventually to the bypass and come up into Rolesville, up to through the area somewhere in the future, continuation. But this is a segment of, based off our greenway plan.
Does this trail connect to Jonesville Road?
It will not physically, but through sidewalks, you can continue and get back around to the east here at the end of that cul-de-sac.
Is there a trail on Jonesville already?
Yes, there is a trail that runs from the main entrance along parallel to Jonesville Road to the
Right. I thought I
cul-de-sac.
saw a trail. I drive over there.
It's HOA.
It's an HOA.
HOA trail. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Danny, where
There's-
is the I guess the cross and the bridge at? Is that at the top?
The bridge would have been up here.
So I think you can.
Let me go
cross-
back.
You can cross where the bridge is at. Ain't it a sidewalk or something? You can go from one neighborhood to the other.
Oh, you mean here?
Yeah.
On Virginia Waters, yes.
You can cross, and then once you cross, can you get on the trail from the
You
from the
will get
sidewalk?
on the trail where that existing gravel path is side of the swimming pool now.
But you can cross the sidewalk and get on the trail if you want to.
Right there on Virginia Waters.
Gotcha.
And the trail you're referring to is right through this area here. Runs from this cul-de-sac up to the main entrance.
And it just connects into the neighborhood street, right?
Right, yes. So we're just looking in more detail, and one of the things I meant to point out, just as information, there was also included greenway, HOA greenways right through here that will connect to the public greenways through this direction. But the topography around here, I'll let the engineer speak to that, is pretty challenging in the accesses that, but the current special use permit says 3 accesses. So this is 1, 2, and then all of this will make 3. So this will comply with the original special use permit.
So you just said the HOA Greenway will connect with the public Greenway?
Yes.
Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, it's HOA maintained. It's publicly accessible, but HOA maintained.
Okay. So-
And that's one of the 3 access points that you.
Yes, that's right. It's specified in those conditions. So this is just providing more details. This is where the Greenway Trail that I was just referencing comes in. This is Inglemore Lane, excuse me. And we did include a reserve easement so that it could be constructed when this property develops to connect here in the future, to continue it on down to the bypass for the pedestrian tunnel. But this is the first segment coming from the lower end heading up towards Virginia Waters. There's 3 slides. Again, picking up here, going around, and then can continue on up to Virginia Waters. This is the pool and the parking, and this is the existing gravel. It will go from gravel to being paved, and it will be wider than what's there now. And there is rock outcroppings. I can let the engineer talk about that, but they have designed it to where it can be done over the rock that's there. The monoliths like you see at the park, those big, massive areas, because it was a concern about drainage and stability of the trail being placed there with dirt and everything. And that does have, in the last sheet of your plans, in there, the construction drawings, there is a detail showing the retaining wall, dirt up with it with rebar to support the base of the trail. So staff recommendation is to approve this amendment for SUP 20-01, Carlton Pointe Special Use Permit for the construction of a public greenway trail replacement for the provision 18 of SUP 0402. And that's all I have to present. I'll let the turn it over to the, if there's any questions.
So Danny, I think this was originally approved, what we amended with, before we had our Greenway plans and all that stuff in place. So is it fair to say in today's environment, you would have to put that Greenway in?
In this fashion?
Yeah.
If you're looking to get the Greenway Trail in this direction, yes. And I think not enough forethought was given to the other proposal to really examine the difficulties. When we got into trying to look at it, it was really identified you could not do what was proposed.
Right. But I guess what I'm saying, it is on our plan.
Yes.
To have it putting in.
This is following that plan to this quarter.
Right. I think the plan came behind after the approval of this, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're correct.
Okay. Let me ask, is there any attorneys in the room for either of the parties? Which party?
Carlton Group.
Okay. Is it any attorneys in the room for the other party? All right. I'll give you opportunity to open comments.
My name is Rick Goodman, and I'm going to take this off while I talk. And I'm from Raleigh. Danny hit this pretty good, but I just want to, and you've asked the question about it. In October of 2005, prior to beginning the site work at Carlton Pointe, the town and Carlton Group, who was the developer, agreed that concrete sidewalks be eliminated from one side of the streets in Carlton Pointe, and in exchange, certain improvements would be made to the proposed Wall Creek Park. The agreement was made in 2005 before any site work had been performed and before grading had started. In 2019, Carlton's professionals, engineers, surveyor, environmental consultant, worked to create a viable plan for the Wall Creek Park with transition from Carlton Pointe. And after 6 months of planning and engineering, it was determined that the transition could not be accomplished due to the grade differences. And this is what Danny was just mentioning. At a subsequent meeting between town officials and Carlton, it was decided it would be better to spend the money allocated by Carlton for the Wall Creek Park to be used for paving the required Carlton Greenway with asphalt instead of making the Greenway with pervious gravel as originally approved. The change from gravel to asphalt is costing the developer more than $100,000 over what was planned, but they're willing to do it. And it will extend, as Danny showed you there. So that's kind of how we got here. In our application, because we are just seeking an amendment to a prior SUP, and none of what we're requesting here or showing here affects any of the former findings of facts. Findings of facts are the same. So I want to make sure that we got that open if you have any questions about that. I think the only thing we really need to do is get Mr. McIntyre here to verify the accuracy of the plan, and so we can submit it as evidence.
Okay. So you're good?
I think so.
Okay. All right, next I will call for any evidence from the applicant or applicant witnesses.
As you
Mr. Mayor, as a point of clarity on council's point, the questions that the board would need to make with regard to the hearing today are, do the changes that are proposed affect the findings of fact? So if something was safe, does this make it unsafe? But only this change, not a reconsideration of a decision that was previously made. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Mac McIntyre. I'm the engineer for Carlton Group. And basically, I just want to answer any questions y'all might have.
Well, the question I have, just to get it into evidence here, is what you've seen on the screen.
Yes, it is.
Did you repeat that?
Yes, it is.
Does the board have any questions for the applicants here?
I do have a quick question. Did you say something about 2005?
The original plans were designed 2004, 2005. The original plans. But the trail is pretty much identical in location to what it was originally. We have also, we had worked with the town engineer to do the necessary storm drainage per the town requirements for any of the crossings to make sure it's a low maintenance, long-lasting trail. And we've installed retaining wall, precast concrete retaining walls where the rock outcrops are, so that the trail would not would give in over time to erosion.
Very good. Okay, I'll open the opportunity for any opponents in the room to cross-examine. Is any opponents in the room that would like to ask a question to the applicants or cross-examine? Okay.
I just have a question.
You have to step up to the mic and let us know your name and address.
Okay. My name is Michelle Larscheid. It's Larscheid, and I live at 729 Strathwood Way. And we got a letter, and so we came, and we're just wondering, because I think there's supposed to be a paved path next to our house, and just wondering if that is still going to happen. Is that part of it? We weren't sure why we got the letter, so we're just here for information, really.
Okay. Well, thank you. We'll give the opportunity to answer, if you can answer the question. Do you know where she's talking about, where she lived at?
I'm not sure based on the trail. The trail actually follows open space that was deeded to the town.
Danny, you know where that address is at?
On Strathway?
The only trail on Stratford is this one right here. And that's the one identified as HOA.
Okay.
And I believe that's already paved. I believe that segment's already paved.
Is there a trail there?
There is not a trail in between us. There was space, and that's, they when we were at the January meeting with Skip and Morty, they said there was gonna be a 10-foot paved trail. Next, it kind of comes down by Pride's Crossing, where it kind of ends, and then it's just a small kind of strip between our houses up from, kind of going up from Pride's to get to Strathwood.
If you look at the monitor up there,
You have a better view of that?
that's the best I have right now.
Topography one is
This is
better.
what you were referring to. That's Stratford. And then this is the connection, and then this is the Greenway Trail that ties into the public trail at this point.
Yeah.
The question we're dealing with here today is this public trail. We're not doing anything about changing any of this aspect of it.
But it has, if they're adjacent to the connector trail.
It will connect to this public trail.
Is this, do you applicant, may I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Does the applicant know if this is adjacent to the HOA connector trail that we're talking about?
Is that what you're? That's all part of the HOA trail right there. All that HOA.
Has that been put in yet?
This segment hasn't.
Huh?
This segment has not.
There's a little segment that's not.
Okay, so I think her question is, that is going to be put in, but it's HOA maintained trail.
So our HOA is gonna put that in, or?
No, they'll put it in,
Developer's gonna put it out, but puts it in, but then ultimately the HOA has to maintain it.
So who's putting it in?
Carlton Group.
Is that y'all?
Yes.
Okay. So the question is, do y'all know when it's going in? I'm confused.
In the proposed revisions, provision 30, it was in your packet, construction of the Greenway shall start by September 15th and completed by December 15th.
So it's part of this overall, is what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah.
So that will be a paved path next to our house, and it will be.
I can't really address, I don't know the condition, I know that the public had to be paid. I was never told if the HOA had. I don't know about that.
So who's installing that, then, you guys?
Carlton Group.
Carlton Group.
Which is the,
and the difference is that will be the neighborhood trail, where this we talking about is the public.
Public trail.
For everybody.
Okay, great.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you. One clarification I would like to make in the proposed revisions, it says provision 12, it should say provision 18. The wording shall be amended as follows, and then add 29 and 30.
Okay. At this time, I'll call for any evidence from any parties in opposition and their witnesses. So is anybody here in opposition to this public greenway? Okay. Offer opportunity to cross-examine the witnesses, so we didn't have any. Offer opportunity to present rebuttal. I don't think we have that. So, do you have any closing arguments that you want to make before we close the public hearing?
Yeah, please. As was indicated, this project's been going on since 2004, and it's nearing the end. And I have not been involved in it that long, but I believe that the Carlton Group has been cooperative, stubborn sometimes, but cooperative in doing what's best for the community. They're required to build this trail. They've spent significant time and resources getting it to the way the town would like it, and getting it laid out in a way that is safe for everybody and feasible. I'd like for you to approve it.
Okay, thank you. All right, one last call. Any questions or any comments from the staff? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing. Okay, I'll close the public hearing and ask for the board, what kind of, what's the state of the board on this?
I have a question. Of course.
I'll
Sorry.
make the motion first.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we discuss it.
Fine.
Okay, I move to approve SUP 20-01 Carlton Pointe PUD Special Use Permit Amendment, Greenway Trail Replacement for previous SUP 0402, conditions with the evidence and testimony received at the hearing to determine the findings of fact.
Okay, we got a motion, so second.
I'll second.
Motion second, okay. What's your question?
Several questions. So the path that's there now, I don't know how to say it, path that's by the pool right now, is that 10 feet wide? It is not. But it's going to be widened to 10 feet, okay. And then I heard reference to asphalt and concrete. This girl has no construction, nothing, right? So is there a difference between the two? And I don't know who to address that question to. Mr. Mack?
Probably best for Mac to address that.
The path will actually be asphalt, 10-foot wide asphalt.
Okay,
The certain areas where it's steep, when there's rock, we're putting the concrete, basically a retaining wall that's going to be embedded in the rock with rebar that keeps the trail from sliding down.
gotcha,
So there's no concrete for the walk, it's concrete to support the trail.
gotcha. So the asphalt is like our road.
Asphalt, you'll see a 10-foot asphalt path.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you very much. and I think this question's for Danny. Did this change go through, or request to change go through the planning board? And if so, were there any objections?
No, it's special use permits do not go through the planning board.
Gotcha. Then my last question is, there's 3 entry points that you identified. Have any of those entry points changed other than the one, obviously, that was going to go to Wall Creek?
No, they have not changed.
The other ones
This is following, is identified by their engineer and their attorneys,
Same
the
ones.
same one.
Gotcha. That's it. That's all I wanted to do.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, we appreciate that. We like greenways. That's one of the things we really, or I would say we're really interested in getting greenways in town. So I didn't catch how many feet this was, but it's a pretty nice one in length, I think. So that's right. It's a winding one too. So so it should be really pretty and nice, and I really appreciate that. You have one comment?
So, Mr. Mayor, would you ask these gentlemen to meet with these folks and maybe give them an answer tomorrow? Exchange phone number and tell them the answer. What's the answer? What kind of trail it's going to be and when it's going to be built, if you wouldn't mind, please. When can they expect their trail, and what kind of trail is it going to be built?
Okay. Sure.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for coming too. All right. We will give a moment for the change of venue here. The next item we have is another public hearing, quasi-judicial case PR 20-03, the preserve at Jones-Dury South preliminary subdivision plat. So I would ask all the participants in this public hearing to come into the chambers, please.
Thinking that one day we're going to get something that didn't start over 10, almost 15 years ago.
Yeah.
There's just so many. It seems like they keep coming. I'm sure we're finishing them up.
Okay. Once again,
Mr. Mayor, we may need one more moment. We may need another moment here.
okay.
Two back there, one there.
Okay.
If you want to call the case.
Yeah. Or you get us a chair right behind you.
No, we do have these for a purpose, sir.
One right here.
So let's make sure we got proper safety. So you're gonna sit, could you please move over here then? Because you're too close to it, don't mind. And you may join.
You know, here it comes.
Trying to make sure we do. How you doing? Appreciate it.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, George and Betty. We'll figure this out. Appreciate that. I think I'm ready. You ready, Attorney, to start your thing?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, have you called this case?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I missed that. Apologies. Keeping in mind the initial comments regarding quasi-judicial hearings, we're going to go through the questions again. A member may not participate in this hearing if the member has a fixed opinion, prior to the hearing that is not susceptible to change, has engaged in undisclosed ex parte communications, or has a close familiar or business or associational relationship with the applicant or an affected person, or has a financial interest in the outcome of the matter. And with that, is any member predisposed to vote a particular way on this matter, such that his or her opinion is fixed and the evidence presented during this hearing is not likely to influence his or her decision?
No.
No.
Has any member discussed this matter with proponents, opponents, or others?
No.
Does any member have a close familial, business, or other associational relationship with the applicant or an aggrieved party?
No.
Does any member have a financial interest in the outcome of this matter?
No.
While not a conflict of interest, specialized knowledge of members should be disclosed. Does any member have particular knowledge or expertise regarding the site or the subject matter of this hearing?
No.
Has any member made a site visit?
No.
Is there any objection by a member of the board or by a party to the participation of any member on the basis of a conflict of interest?
No.
Seeing none, Mr. Mayor, we're ready to go.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, so I will open the public hearing and ask the clerk to swear in all the ones that want to take testimony today.
Everyone who wishes to give testimony will stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. I will call for a staff report now.
Thank you, Mayor. This request is for a preliminary subdivision plat approval as a quasi-judicial site plan approval process required by a special use permit 1805 provision 10 that specified that when the preliminary plat or any comes back for consideration, it would come back to the board as a quasi-judicial site plan. The proposed subdivision is 216 residential single-family lots located on the south side of Jones Dairy Road, east of Averett Ridge subdivision, on a parcel of 54.01 acres. The future land use map adopted in 2017 classifies this parcel as medium-density residential. The current zoning for this proposed subdivision is residential plan unit development, and the proposed preliminary plat complies with the approved special use permit 1805's PUD master plan that specified various elements in that plan. Property in question is this wooded area here. This is Jones Dairy Road. This is Young Street and Averett Road right here, and Young Street through here. It changes name at Jones Dairy Road. Site is outlined in red. Includes these two tracks as well as a narrow strip right here that gets all the way over to Chalk Road, and we'll show you what will be going on with that strip as well. All the yellow you see here outlined in red is in the residential PUD that was rezoned back in 2018. So here's the preliminary plat that is consistent with the special use permit master plan. This is the entrance off of Jones Dairy Road. And then, of course, this is a residential collector that ties into Flash Drive right here with the street intersection. That's an existing stub on Averett Ridge. But there will be two entrances and accesses here. There also will be stubs in the future to the adjoining properties to heading towards Chalk Road. There is buffers that were identified in the master plan that follow through on the preliminary plat along these corridors. And of course, there's the landscaping buffer, fences, and et cetera already included. No, excuse me, I accidentally clicked the wrong thing. So back to this lower end here, you see that there is a Greenway trail, and I'm sorry, let me go back. There is a Greenway trail that will tie into the northern track. You'll see later on Carlton Pointe, the preserve at Jones Dairy Road Central that will come to you at another date, at another meeting. But there's a crossing here that will carry through here on the subdivision. There'll be a side path and then come to here, tied into a side path parallel to the road, and then go into the open space, follow in here to this cul-de-sac, and then provide a side path along the road to the point here, which is getting close to that same point here that will eventually continue the Greenway Trail down this strip of land that down to Chalk Road. Eventually, this is part of an overall Greenway Trail from the master plan. That's why it's being incorporated here. But I wanted to point that out.
Can you go back to the last picture, please?
Yes, ma'am.
And point the roads out to me. I'm sorry, I'm visual, and I don't have that map. So what,
None of us do.
yeah, what's
We
the
don't- we
top
don't-
road? Is that?
This is Jones Dairy Road,
Okay.
and it will be, and I'm getting ready to reference the road improvements that'll come with that. But it will be widened and improved through this section from property line to property line on this half, and of course, there will be the comparable side when Jones Dairy Road Central comes through, which is coming to you next fairly soon.
And that's chalk on the bottom?
Chalk is off the map.
Oh.
It is off the map. If I go to the next slide, this is Chalk Road right here.
Oh, okay, I got you. There's more land behind there.
Danny, the Greenway path that goes through there, you said it was a side path. Are we using sidewalks there still, or is it an actual path in addition to the sidewalks?
It will be a wider path be a side path
Okay.
than a regular 5-foot sidewalk.
Okay.
It'll be a regular sidewalk on this side and a wider side path on the other side.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I know this looks a little grainy. It was a problem with trying to convert it to a format that will work with the PowerPoint. But we are looking at a 4-lane road here with widening from property line to property line and with road improvements. So that was identified from the 2002 transportation plan, called for street improvements on this portion of Jones Dairy Road. I'm just giving you background information. This will be re-widening as required by ordinance for half of the street improvements for 4 lanes with the center lane, turn lane, including curb and gutter and sidewalks on both sides.
Danny, what does that mean? That we will require road widening and right-of-way dedication for the development for 1/2 of street improvements.
Means that in this case, for the south, we're doing half, and then when the central comes in, they do the other half, but you're doing separate projects. So technically, it's just a half that on this side that they're obligated to do. They will be, most likely, be constructing all that at one time when we get all phases before you of this project. Because there's other segments to come in later. Hope I didn't confuse you on that. Let me go back. Jones Dairy Road Central is on the opposite side, the northern half of this property, and it's a plan in review that'll be coming to you probably in the next month or so.
Jones Dairy Road Central.
Central.
A plan that's going to come to us.
If you'll look at your list for future meetings,
More housing?
yes. And there's a master plan already approved for it.
Yeah, just for April benefit, all this has been through approval. I think it's a north, south, and a central.
That's correct, Mayor.
And also, this is a PUD that's already been approved.
Yeah.
And the density has already been approved.
That's correct.
We're just approving the site plan.
The subdivision.
Got it.
We're approving the preliminary plat for subdividing the property.
Right. Thank you.
Normally, these go administratively, but because the condition in that special use permit said it wanted to go through a quasi-judicial site plan review. That's why we're here in this fashion.
Does your map show the different sections? It just helps to get that clarity when we're talking about.
I did not go show the north or central on this
Okay,
plan.
so it's not on this map that you had earlier with the yellow one?
Yeah,
No,
I
ma'am.
think it actually shows on the yellow. Your first one we have.
You had the yellow and the
The
top.
yellow shows.
I think you
the
said the
topo
central
one?
and the north one.
Yeah, this is what would be the future central. That's part of the PUD.
Okay, so that's the future central that you're referencing.
That's correct. And that's coming to you at a later future town board meeting.
But we're talking about the south right now, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Clarity.
So, as talked about road widening, the road improvements are included in the proposed preliminary plat plan. There was a traffic impact analysis prepared, and that was included in a special use permit of 1805. 1805 is the case number. So I'm just going to share with you in summary what was included in that. And the town is going to be able to request valuation of Jones Dairy Road, Everett Road intersection after 24 months of the first issued certificate of occupancy for the preserve of Jones Dairy Road, either south or central portions, and when there is evidence of developing traffic congestion or safety issues at this intersection that would warrant, a warrant is what has to be required by DOT to put a stoplight in, that would warrant a stoplight as recommended by the TIA. The TIA, which was presented during the special use permit hearing, clearly identified that eventually would be the necessity for consideration of a stoplight at this location.
How is that warrant initiated? Like who?
It will be initiated by our observation,
Our town of
meaning the
Rolesville.
town.
Not DOT.
Well, DOT can too.
Can.
Can, yes. But if we see that we feel like it's appropriate after 24 months with that many homes being built, that it's necessary to go ahead and get this moved forward, because usually we like to do it when there's a strong possibility that the warrant will be granted after it's evaluated. That's when we would do that.
But clarifying, common practice, does DOT monitor that, or would town of Rolesville truly be the ones
Both.
to monitor that?
Both,
DOT monitors that.
yeah. Because they'll be looking at the incidents or events or congestion reports
that happen,
as it
accidents.
goes along, and then, of course, we will be doing the same. And it's being, as I get ready to say, all of this will be at the expense of the developer.
So they're putting money in.
Yes, they're responsible for it. So that includes the cost of installing the traffic light improvement when it gets the warrant with mass arms, et cetera.
And Jones Dairy will eventually cross Everett Road and come out at Pulleytown in the future.
In the future, but it's not part of this project.
Yeah, I understood that. Understood.
Danny, in 2 years, approximately, how many homes would be there? I mean, I know it's hard to tell.
We because of the economic conditions and everything, it's based upon 2 years evaluation point with all the houses through there.
Depends on how
I mean, I
much
think
they're
I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head. I know that this is the number we have here, but, you know, it can be done 2 months after just the south alone, if the conditions. The objective of that condition is not wait with a specific number, is wait until you say this is the best time that this needs to be submitted to DOT to get the warrant to put the light in.
So is there a possibility, so in 2 years, we don't expect the whole 216 homes to be built? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so,
He says no.
Well, I mean, not all of them.
not all,
2 years.
but is there, so if there is an issue before 2 years? I don't know, depending on how many homes and all.
We
that.
can certainly, if it becomes necessary, can do what necessary action. But again, this is all, let me clarify, this has all been addressed by the special use permit. I'm just sharing this as information for your knowledge, so you know that that's been addressed. Okay?
I appreciate the knowledge
And sharing.
that you were sharing.
Neighborhood meeting was held on February 25th, 2020, before the phase 1 was done. We were looking for that. You do have in your, should have in your agenda package a summary of the meeting results and comments. The proposed preliminary plat meets all the provisions of the Rolesville Unified Development Ordinance with proposed streets, sidewalks, greenways, mail kiosk parking, and contains 14.2% of open space. 10% is our minimum requirement, so they have exceeded that. So the Technical Review Committee has reviewed the proposed preliminary plat and recommends approval. We, the planning staff, recommend approval of the PR 2003 Preserve at Jones Dairy Road South preliminary plat subject to the evidence and testimony presented at this public hearing.
From the planning board, was there any objection? And if so, what was it?
No, the planning board did recommend approval, and I apologize, I should put that in my side point. Did recommend approval, and there was no objection.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. I missed that to my PowerPoint. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Dean.
Good point.
Okay. Thank you, Danny. Okay, is there any representation of council here? Is it representation for both sides or just one side? Okay. So I'll hear your open statement.
I stood before this board about a month ago, and I think I mentioned at that point that we do appreciate everyone's effort, from the board members to the manager to Mr. Neal, in opening these proceedings back up and the safeguards that you've taken to make this safe for everyone to come and speak and allow us to move our plans forward. And I reiterate that again tonight. Thank you. My name is Ken Edwards, Wake County Bar, 5909 Falls of Noose Road in Raleigh. I do represent the applicant. I'm not trying to go back over what Danny, I think, did a great job of already stating, but this is a master plan which has already been an approved PUD, approved as to density, etc., and special use permit 18-05. We have, in regards to the traffic issues, we're very much aware of that. We accept that condition which was placed, which gives us the opportunity to review traffic again in 24 months. We thought that was a great compromise condition we welcome. I will also say to you that, as mentioned, we are exceeding the open space requirements by 50%, 14.2 over 10%, and we're proud of that. We think the community is going to be well received. We think it's going to be in compliance with other neighborhoods within the community, and certainly in compliance with the already approved master plan. I have a number of experts tonight that I plan on putting on for testimony, and if any time you have questions of them, we're going to cover everything from traffic to stormwater to obviously engineering, and then also the way the community fits into the neighborhood area. I think I'm going to start out, since he's already warmed up, and get McIntyre to come up and speak as to the engineering components.
Good evening again. Mac McIntyre, engineer for Jones Dairy. I'm here to answer any questions y'all might have.
So I'm back to the road. I think this question is for you, Mac.
Yes, ma'am.
In the neighborhood questions, I see what appears to be conflicting answers. It says, will road widening be only at the end of the development? The answer was yes, that's correct. And then another question was, how will the road widening be addressed? And there was a different answer. Talk about the phasing and the DOT and traffic
first,
study.
Eventually, I'm going to Ronald to speak to the traffic and the phase into the road widening, because it's all tied to the DOT and also traffic count for what DOT would approve. I think the initial thought, and Ronald will have to address this, is to do a center turn lane for the first phase, and that would provide a turn lane for both the south and the central. And then, based on whatever Ronald's comments are, we progress to the full width based on the traffic load and also whatever DOT says they will approve.
So the answer is not at the end of the development.
The road widening occurs to the end, to the edge of to the property line, to the west, to the south side, in other words, our whole frontage road widening occurs. Okay.
But when does it start?
It's going to start. We're trying to get approval right now with the DOT. We're working with them as well. So it's intended to be in conjunction.
So it could work in conjunction.
Yes.
So I'm just looking at these.
And the center turn lane is the fastest way to get and the most. And I'll let Ronald address that.
Okay. So it sounds like it's in phases.
That's the probability.
I got you. Okay, I'd love to hear from Ronald. I don't have any more questions.
Okay.
Okay, next witness you have.
I'm going to ask Ronell Stevenson from Ramey Kemp to come talk about traffic.
Good evening. I'm Ronald Stevenson with Ramey Kemp and Associates, 5808 Farrington Place in Raleigh. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of North Carolina, and was the engineer in charge on the traffic impact analysis that was done on the project. And Danny did a pretty good job of covering this, I think. But a pretty comprehensive traffic study was done that looked at the ultimate conditions out here along Jones Dairy Road, and with the build out of this south, central, and north, So we're really getting the whole picture, and now we're coming in with the first part of it. And I think you're correct that the improvements will be done in, call them phases or stages. So when the south piece comes in first, there will be widening that will happen on Jones Dairy Road. When the central comes in, as Danny had indicated, there will be widening along that side, as well, Jones Dairy. And so it will be staged as the project goes out. And what Mac was saying is that if this moves in first, this south piece, it's very likely that the widening that's going to happen on Jones Dairy Road will operate such that there is a left-hand turn lane that goes into the driveways. And that makes sense. That's what NCDOT has indicated that they will require out here, and that's what we certainly anticipate happening right now. As Mac mentioned, I think they're moving in that direction with NCDOT to get the plans approved that actually show that. So that will happen. Danny did a good job of going over the intersection at Jones Dairy and Averett, but similar thing there. It's sort of a phased approach for that intersection, and since it is off-site, it'll be looked at after 2 years. At least after 2 years, there will be a look at it to see if the improvements identified there are needed at that time.
Gotcha. So I want to clarify for the public record. These questions are conflicting. The answers, I should say, are conflicting. It says, will road widening only be at the end of development? And it's actually in phases. So whoever in the public asked that question, I just want to clarify that.
Well, that's a good question. When you read that, I didn't know if that meant at the end of the property line or if it meant timeline-wise.
It just says end of the development is the question, and then the answer was yes, that's correct. So I'm not sure if there was clarification made or not, but that's the answer. So I just want to clarify for the public.
Okay. I think there may be both. There may be widening near the end of the development, but there will be widening at the beginning as well. So
it's in phases.
Yes,
I got you.
yes, ma'am.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure, absolutely.
Do you know when this will start? And I don't know who that question is appropriate for.
Yeah, the development itself, or I'll let maybe somebody else answer that if there's if there's any other questions on the transportation or traffic, I'll be glad to answer those, and then I'm sure that question can be addressed.
Sure.
Okay, I do have a question about the traffic.
Yes, ma'am.
So you said that after 24 months, I believe, that the intersection of Averett and Jones Dairy would be reevaluated. So in this traffic impact analysis that's been done, were the new developments that are currently being developed down Averett Road, Elizabeth something or another, Elizabeth Springs, and a few of them down there, and the school that's coming and all of that, were all of those numbers taken into consideration when this study was done?
They were. One of the things we do in the traffic study is when we sit down to do it, that's what we figure out is what other developments are planned or approved at the time and will be done, and we factor their traffic in as well. Yes, we do. Good, very good question.
Okay.
Mayor, before we let Mr. Stevenson go, may I just, for the record, ask him a couple quick questions?
Okay, yes.
Mr. Stevenson, as an engineer who studies traffic, do you believe that the proposed development and or its use will not cause undue traffic congestion or create a traffic hazard?
It will not with the improvements identified.
And do you agree that the proposed development or use is appropriately located with respect to transportation facilities?
Yes, it is.
I didn't really hear that last question.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm wearing my mask. So the last question I asked was, did the proposed development and or its use appropriately located in respect to other traffic facilities? And the answer, I believe, was yes.
But what does that mean? I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think what it's getting at is the development in a location that has sufficient access and infrastructure to handle traffic. Really what it's saying. So we have Jones Dairy Road, we have Averett Road, multiple access points. So that was the basis for saying yes.
Would it ever not?
Actually, it could. I mean, chances are we wouldn't make it this far, if that was the case. But it could. But a lot of times that's going to end before it even gets here, before the board or town council.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Medley, Mr. Edwards, the attorney for the applicant, cribbed that question straight from our UDO. It's 3.6.2 subsection E. So we may want to revisit that with the planning board if it needs to be rewritten in plain English.
Yes, that old English.
Thank you, Mr. Neal.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I do have two additional questions for you, sir. On number 19 of the public questions, it says, will DOT be monitoring traffic regularly? Yes, as a matter of practice, that DOT conducts surveys. Do they do that on a schedule, or do they do that as needed if the town calls them out, or like every 6 months or every year they'll come out? Is there a protocol for how they conduct those?
Yes, it is, and it's both, really. They can come out and investigate something at any time. If the town says, hey, we think we have a problem here, we'd like for you to look at it, they would come out and look at it. But otherwise, they do regular traffic counts and monitoring. I want to say it's every 2 years. It's every year or every 2 years they do regular traffic monitoring on their roadways. So you may see, you've probably seen it, some of the little black rubber tubes that go across the roads. They're taking traffic data, when you see those. And most of those go back to DOT, or DOT is performing those.
Okay, and it'll be here at this site because this is new construction?
It's at various sites. They normally do it at the same locations over and over so they can compare how traffic changes over time. So I think they were relatively close to here, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Their stations.
Okay, and just one last question, and then
Sure.
I'll let you go. Back to Averett Road and Jones Dairy. So you said that in 2 years you'll look at the traffic and see if what has been proposed is still relevant. Am I paraphrasing that correctly?
Sort of. Let me try to restate it a little bit, because after 2 years we're going to evaluate the traffic to see where the traffic volumes and traffic operation congestion is relative to what is needed to actually put the improvements in.
Okay, so no improvements are stated right now in anywhere because we don't know what's going to happen in 2 years.
They are required to be done. It's just a matter of when they're done. So after 2, as you've heard, it takes a while to start building out the development. So there'll be homes built. So after 2 years, I'm going to use a completely hypothetical number. Just say everything goes well, and we're at 200 homes. Then at that point, we're going to go out and look at that intersection again. Whether it's taking traffic counts, it may be very clear that a traffic light is needed. So at that point, we're going to see, okay, how's this intersection working? How is the traffic here? Do we need, as Danny mentioned, do we need to go ahead and move forward with getting the traffic signal put in and the improvements at the intersection?
Okay.
So
I guess my question the answer that I'm looking for is, I appreciate that because that helps me, but what is proposed for that right now? Is that a traffic light eventually down the road proposed, keeping in mind that we have to see how it's going and where it's going in that 2 years?
Correct. And I fully anticipate the traffic signal to be needed. I don't think this is a situation where if it's ever needed, it's just going to be when. So yes, ma'am, correct.
I have a question I'd like to address the town manager or the town staff about that. We know eventually, well, I believe as a developer that yes, the traffic light will be needed at some time. Is the developer required to put up a performance bond for that traffic light?
The process of putting the traffic light would be going through when the time the warrants, it's been granted by DOT. DOT has to first say, yes, there's a warrant for a traffic light. Once that's done, Then the developer, through their engineers, will start preparing plans. That's including the mass arms, the signal, the controls, the whole gamut, and whatever adjustments to the intersection have to be done to accommodate the signal to be installed. And it will be installed. We do not have it tied to any completion of so many homes. Once we get the warrant, it says put it in. So it's a normal time of construction after that. So we don't have anything in the conditions and don't think it's necessary, because there's a lot of homes to be built, and we think that it'll be triggered pretty early, that the improvements will go in and won't be necessary to bond it. But if we get close to the end and it's not done, then yes, we would require bonding to assure construction. But we're going to be pushing for construction way before the end of these phases.
I understand it, and I'm in favor of what I've seen so far. It's just that I remember 2007 and 2008, and a lot of good developers went bankrupt, okay? And we are in the middle of a pandemic, and we don't know what the future brings. And I don't know why we shouldn't require either a performance bond or have so many COs issued. And when those COs are issued, at what time do we require that stoplight to be put in, or we stop the COs?
Question.
Okay. I mean, that's just me remembering 2007, 2008. I hope I didn't insult any developers in this room.
No disagreement. Remember 2008 myself, and yes, you're right. We just haven't determined that number to answer the question at this moment, except when we did initial, when we would get the warrant studies done, that would then trigger the need to put the light in, and then the light is to be installed within a reasonable time after that warrant's been granted. Your point's well taken. I'm not going to disagree with you. I think it's just a question of when we get to both phases of south, north, and this one, which is what the TIA, I think that's a question to go back with the developers, particularly with the next phase, when the next section comes in, possibly address it at that time.
Okay.
And if that's with an agreement with the parties, discussion of that. But I don't know if we can do it tonight.
I don't have a problem with the 200 homes, but when we go across the street, I do. Okay.
Across the street and down the street.
Yeah.
And Danny, I still have another question for you that I already had before Commissioner Wilson spoke. So the up to 24 months, is that RUDO or is that DOT?
That was negotiated with the developer on the conditions and discussions with the consultant engineer.
So
But that was appropriate to determine time.
And not percentage of homes or COs?
Correct, because that number could fluctuate. We didn't want to wait until a certain point and think we got the right number, I guess is the best way to say it, to trigger.
Can't do it up to?
This trigger is based upon the conditions of the intersection where there is a safety or a congestion issue. If we start seeing a lot of cars backing up there trying to be able to get onto the street because it's a stop sign and it's stacking up, that's a condition to justify us doing a warrant.
But what's the trigger for, I just don't understand the trigger. The only trigger I'm seeing here is 24 months.
At least 24 months, yeah.
Trigger. So I'm
That was a point to say, definitely, you got to do it sometime. We picked 24 months from the first CO.
We can't put the traffic light in until there's enough traffic there.
Sure.
And I think another reason for the 24 months is that it sort of takes into account all these other developments that were mentioned earlier. So instead of trying to pin it on, just say 200 units in this development, that doesn't take into account how fast other developments around it build out. So that's the 2 years we sort of, the way we do is we take the traffic that's there today and we sort of grow it out, over a period of time. So the 2 years would take into account some other traffic that we would expect to be there as well.
From other developments.
Other developments. So it ties it sort of everything together instead of just putting it on any one development. So it sort of, it needs to be probably a little bit flexible there to account for all of that.
Could it be less than 2 years?
Could be. DOT's made the same requirement, put the signal in when it's warranted. So if it,
It will happen before 24 months. Yeah, possibly.
that's a good question, and I think I'm pretty sure that the one in Wake Forest you're talking about was not in this because it was not approved until after our TIA was done. However, one of the things we do in these TIAs is say we can't reasonably expect to capture everything, that's approved at the time. There's going to be more than we know of right now that's going to come in. So we do take the existing traffic that we have and we grow that up. We grow that up to the future year anyway. So we assume there's some traffic growth regardless of any other developments that come in. So we assume the traffic that's out there is going to grow every year. And then we add in the traffic from these other developments that we know of at the time. So we sort of account for that in the study.
Okay. Question? Thank you.
Okay, you have any more witnesses to testify?
Mr. Mayor, if you would, I'd like to get Mac back up here just for a second, just for making some statements again, for the public record. And with the permission, I'm going to just kind of question Mac now, if that's okay with everyone for a second.
Okay.
Mac, what's your occupation?
Civil engineer.
And are you familiar with Rolesville community?
Yes, I am.
Are you familiar with their UDO?
Yes, I am.
Their comprehensive plan?
Yes, I am.
Did you prepare all the drawings that we've seen thus far relating to the south section of the preserve at Jones Dairy?
Yeah, the preliminary I did, yes.
Okay. Is it safe to say that the proposed development and use comply with all applicable requirements of the UDO?
Yes.
The proposed development and/or use is appropriately located with respect to transportation facilities, water and sewer supply, fire and police protection, and similar facilities?
Yes, it is.
That the proposed development and/or use will generally conform with the comprehensive plan and that other official plans adopted by the town?
Yes, they are.
That the proposed development and/or use will be in harmony with the scale, bulk, coverage, density, and character of the neighborhood in which it is located?
Yes.
That the proposed development and/or use will not substantially injure the value of adjoining property?
It will not.
That the proposed development and/or use will not materially endanger the public health or safety?
No, it will not.
No further questions of Matt.
One thing I want to mention about the time frame in 2 years is that we're still working on construction drawings. They have to go through approval through 4 or 5 different agencies. And then we're coming up on the winter months where construction's a little difficult as far as grading. So we're looking at the spring, late spring, maybe into the summer, having lots ready. I can't predict that exactly, but it could be. And then the time frame for building houses, the first phase is 4 to 6 months per house, So based on that, there's only so much that can be done in 2 years.
Are you the person I would ask a tree question to?
Possibly.
Are you the tree person?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Attorney, any more witnesses?
Mr. Mayor, we'll rest at this point, reserve the right for rebuttal.
Okay, so I'll ask, is there any opponents in the room that would like to ask a question or cross-examine?
Because of the school. There's a school down that road too, within a half a mile of the intersection. They're building more houses the other way down Averett Road. My driveway sits, if a third car parks at stops at a stoplight at that intersection, my driveway will be blocked. I mean, there are times now that I can't get out of my driveway for as much as 30 minutes. And the pandemic has caused less traffic. So it means as soon as this is over, next spring or thereabouts, it's going to get worse.
Danny, has that been addressed? Because this is not the first time she said this.
We addressed that.
I just,
Danny?
I thought we did, but I'm not sure if there was a satisfactory outcome for
To our previous records where we had this discussion.
I'd
And
have
if
to
you
go
have
back
to
and
pull
recall.
those, that's great. But I remember this discussion, that we talked about this, and I don't remember the resolution or if there was a resolution. But I remember.
Why the dialogue stopped.
Okay, and I do agree with you, so maybe traffic will work out for her. So let me take that. I'll take that back. But I am a little curious as to what our response was besides that.
Didn't have a response because we were stopped.
Okay, let's let the witness finish the point she want to make. Is
That's it.
anything else, Betty?
No, because basically the traffic is the traffic.
Okay.
And it is going to change when the pandemic's over. I haven't heard a single word said about
at least in the near future. But that's just my thought. The intersection at Jones Dairy and Averitt, other thing I would point out there, we talked a lot about the light. There also will be some turn lanes added there, left turn lanes, and that'll help cut down on some of that queuing. Now, it may not make it all go away, but it'll help with the queuing and the traffic light itself. And Danny did a really good job of explaining this. When the light does turn red, it will back up on Averitt Road. But the idea is that when the light goes in, it causes the overall number of cars stacked there to go down. So it'll be stacked up, but then it clears out and it moves freely. And it just cuts down on the number of cars that are stacked at the overall intersection. So I would certainly expect that number of cars, if there was 25 cars or something stacked up on Jones Dairy, to certainly go down in that situation. But the turn lanes there will help a lot as well too. And I may have unintentionally kind of glossed over that before, but that intersection will have turn lanes as well as the traffic signal. That'll make a big difference at that intersection.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Any other testimony? Okay, George. State your name, George, and address just for the record.
My name is George Garcia. I'm an engineer, both by training and occupation, petroleum and civil. The original traffic study from twos and the speeds, I think that they were at 45 and 55 in that area there, and actually the speeds are 35 and 45. So I don't know if that was corrected to account the accordion effect. Okay. Number two, the issue of the pre-pandemic traffic there. Traffic was backing up both on Jones Dairy all the way back to the original Jones Dairy, the school and all that, and also going down towards town. The light down there, traffic was just plugged in the mornings there quite a bit. Hopefully we'll all be here after the pandemic, but we anticipate, there's going to be an upsurge on it. We have an impact. We don't have, our property is not within the 200 feet, but we do have a potential impact of all this traffic, and potentially it may affect our real estate that we own there. Okay? And I would like to find out who within DOT, whether it's Joy Hopkins or Wheeler, is reviewing all this so I can contact them. I've had already conversations with them. Okay? Hopefully you all can resolve the issue without impacting us further. Thank you very much.
Can I ask you a question? The tree there that with the sign on it, "Save this tree," is that yours?
I'm sorry?
The tree there at your house with the
Yeah, the 250-year-old tree, yes, sir.
That is
Absolutely.
your tree.
It belongs to my wife and I now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, George. Any rebuttal? Maybe you have a name that you usually talk to at DOT or anything like that?
Those individuals that were mentioned are some of the folks who would be involved in this. The specific person who would be approving the driveway permit is no longer Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Scott Wheeler. However, he's moved to a different area in the DOT, but sometimes he gets involved in these projects that he was involved in before leaving. moving to a different area. So he may still be involved. I don't know, but they are involved in this at this point, going through the construction drawings that Mac alluded to earlier. They have to go through their office for review and approval, so they are engaged in this. And then the traffic light issue is under Mr. Joey Hopkins, an individual under his office, and there's a new gentleman there now. And I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it is somebody under Mr. Joey Hopkins who will be involved in the traffic light decision on when that goes in. So, yeah, they are involved in it, and they will be involved in this, throughout.
Okay, thank you very much.
May I quickly add something?
Sure.
There are some precedents within the area here, which I'm sure you all are aware of. But there's been traffic issues due to development, Fuquay-Varina, Cary, and so on. And some of the folks here used to work down there. They're aware of the situation down there. Hopefully, it will not replicate here, and that's what we're concerned about. Thank you. It's happened overseas too. I mean, not overseas, but out of state, Colorado. I've lived there. There's been a lot of issues there.
Thank you, George. Appreciate that. Okay. Any other testimony from anyone, opponents or applicant? Any testimony left? If not, I'll give you opportunity to give you a closing argument.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to be brief, because I think it defines the need to be brief, but as mentioned, we are proposing a plan which has already been supported by a special use permit, master plan approved for PUD and density in accordance with all of those terms. We have presented tonight evidence from a civil engineer as well as a traffic engineer and reports relating to a traffic impact analysis, which have dealt with the majority of the issues which have been discussed here tonight. We believe that the compromise that was worked out with the 24 months, although there was some question about that, is one that was reasonably accepted by the town and by the applicant, and gives us all an opportunity to review at a later date as we see exactly what type of traffic impact there may be relating to this south section of the preserve at Jones Dairy. I'm going to ask that you approve it as being in compliance with the special use permit and also the approved master plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, any last questions from staff? Comments? Last questions of staff from board?
Still looking for that information.
And what
I don't see why we can't get that information.
What is that?
When was this originally presented? I don't see why that's a hard reference. To me, when we get these documents, there should be a reference to that material. And if we need to easily access it, we should be able to do that, because that question kind of goes back to that.
Which question are you referring to?
The question about the traffic.
What do you mean, the traffic?
When I said we had that discussion before, and Danny said he doesn't know the answer, that we should ask Remy Kemp, but I think if we had the discussion and it's in our notes, then we should be able to reference it.
And what's the specific question?
The specific question was about the traffic, the intersection. We talked about that before, and I thought there was a remedy offered or some discussion about something. I was trying to see that.
I remember the question, but I do not remember any remedy.
That's what I don't know the answer to.
I totally remember the
As a
question. That's why I brought it up.
procedural matter, whatever the discussions were by the board at the hearing on the special use permit would be the discussions that were used to create the conditions, the motion, and the vote on that case. So the conditions that came out of that hearing, for example, the 24-month requirement, would be what we're bound to here.
But if there's
We
other
don't
conditions-
have the ability to second guess what the prior board's vote was at this hearing.
I'm not second-guessing.
Unless new information was presented here that changes the case.
guess
And I don't
what-
think you've heard that evidence.
But I think the question really was, what was the outcome of that? Because I remember her
The,
asking
the
that
outcome
question.
is the order that you issued that was recorded at the Register of Deeds.
No, but even if we're looking at it, we're asking just as a point of reference to try to gather where the thought was then. Not saying, not taking away from anything that we're doing tonight and was what got us to this point tonight. But I just remembered, and like both Commissioner Wilson and Commissioner Sutton said, we really don't exactly remember an answer, but we understand that we're moving, whatever we did that night, whatever decisions were made, brought us to this point this evening. Right? So
I don't disagree with you. It would be improper for you to use that hearing to inform your decision today.
Okay.
Then I don't understand then.
But it's not to say that we would have used that to make a decision based on that tonight. Really, I think it goes beyond that, really. Just how do you reference something from that got us to this point? So not to say we're going to base our decision tonight on her concern. But the question is, which can go outside of this, it can be handled at another time, but it happens more often than you realize. We're trying to remember things, but I guess you're saying we don't have to remember them because whatever was said and decided, that's why we're here tonight.
Correct. So
That's politics.
So correct. Different from our normal cases where we have a legislative.
What I want to say about it is basically what I'm trying to discern from what the attorney is saying is basically we set up the framework the last meeting when we voted on all that. Now we're setting up, putting the puzzle pieces in there, and do the puzzle pieces agree with what the town approves. You can't change it. You can't change the frame.
We're not trying
now.
to change it.
No,
It
I'm
was
just
just a
saying, but you
general
can't-
question.
Yeah,
Let me interrupt.
Seem
Let
to
me
have an
interrupt.
answer to, but it's okay. We can move on and
Yeah, let me-
do the next step.
Let me interrupt here. Thank you, Paul. But I think we're jumping ahead a little bit into deliberations here, and that's what you guys need to do is do this deliberations. But let's finish the public hearing and get that closed, and make sure we got all the questions we have for the applicants in this public hearing, and turn it over to the board for deliberations.
Ronnie, based on the evidence that we have been given tonight, we have no reason not to approve this, based on the evidence and the testimonies. So I move, based on the quasi-judicial site plan public hearing required by case SUP 18-05 for the approval of PR 2003 to preserve at Jones Dairy Road South, preliminary subdivision plat with the evidence and testimony received at the hearing to determine the findings of fact. I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. Now, let's discuss the motion. Is there any more discussion with the motion before we take vote? Who was the second? Was it Paul? I think I heard. Who did you, is that who you got? Any more discussion? Sheila, you got any more?
I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Any more? April, Michelle, Paul, Jackie? All right, I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
No.
Okay, I think my count was 4-1. Robin? Thank you, board. The motion passed. Okay. Thanks. Appreciate everybody coming, for and against. Thank you for coming out tonight. The next item on the agenda is the Cobblestone Development and Purchase Agreement discussion. And thank you. And I think we will take a quick 5 minutes. Okay? So let's try to convene at 1:45 if we can by that clock. If we can't, I understand, but let's take a quick recess. Thank you. got a mask on. So, it's hard to really talk and see people, but I haven't heard anything pretty much one way or other. And as the, Kelly says, are we ready to have a public hearing? I think that's the main question I want to keep the board deliberating on. Are we ready to have a public hearing? Are we ready to call the public hearing to give us comments on what we do?
I got a chance to listen to the Zoom meeting that they shared the other day, which was really good. There weren't a whole lot of questions. I was taking note of what the questions were around, and a lot of it was around parking and always traffic. But parking was the main issue, and I think that was well addressed. There weren't a lot of questions, which I was surprised. But I feel comfortable with the public hearing with it, based on what we've done so far.
Was the parking standards changed from Raleigh's to Rolesville's on the site plan?
So, Mr. Wilson, I think, no, the site plan has not changed. So the site plan is as is. Next Tuesday, you also have a discussion, a special meeting you've called, in which you're now going to then talk about the mixed-use development UDO amendment. And that will be a good point to talk about parking, because not only do you have to approve this economic development agreement if you were to allow this development to go forward, you also have to approve a text amendment, which will have parking standards.
Okay.
And you also may have to approve site plan and other things associated with the mixed-use development. So there are some more checks for you, but the parking is still the same. I know the developer has heard your concerns and interest. I think it is going to be one that will be, I think the timing is good as far as the UDO rewrite conversation, the text amendment conversation next Tuesday, because you're gaining perspective on that.
Okay, I was just looking at my calendar. That's a virtual meeting at 6 p.m. next week.
Yes, sir.
I hate virtual meetings.
Yeah.
We can't do it in this room.
Cannot. Our consultants, I'm sorry, that's just the world we live in today. I cannot force them to be here, but they are very integrated, and so we do need to hold that one.